Welcome to the Ending Sexploitation podcast, where we decode sexual harm and provide you with active solutions. I'm your host, Haley McNamara. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us once again on the Ending Sexploitation podcast. And hello, Dani Pinter from the NCOSE Law Center. How are you doing today?
Good. Hello, Haley. Good to chat with you as always.
As always, I feel like we are discussing the most wild things that are happening often on the internet. Today is another AI focused episode as we're going to review a report that recently came out around AI generated child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, and a more trending, a bigger headline really is the new Grok AI chat companion that was released earlier this week. So there's a lot to dive into. Dani, I feel like we're talking about AI like every 2 or 3 weeks. It just starts to dominate our conversations. It's kind of
It's
crazy.
true. It's wild. I think we're right. I don't think we're the only ones talking about it, but it's just such a fast-moving, evolving issue of our time. It's hard not. From my perspective, I feel like this is probably how everyone felt when the internet was first beginning. And
Mm,
I don't think we did enough to build in safety then and listen to like sky is falling narratives about how any kind of attempt at safety would stifle innovation. And so I think we're right to be a little more skeptical of that and to be actually calling for safety at every step of the way. At the very least, it's keeping everyone honest and accountable along the way, I hope. That's the hope.
Yes, no, I completely agree. And it's just one of those things. There are new headlines. I mean, almost every week, certainly. I mean, it's actually almost every day. There's a podcast called like the AI Daily Debrief, something like that. I'm getting it wrong, but every day there's breaking news in this space. And unfortunately, that also means around exploitation issues. So we can turn first to a recent article from The Guardian, which said that AI generated child sexual abuse videos surging online, Watchdog says, is the title of this article. And it's a report out of the Internet Watch Foundation, which I know we're both very familiar with. They're a nonprofit in the UK. And as I understand it, Dani, they really function in a lot of ways like the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, or NCMEC, operates in the US, which is that they're like a clearinghouse for identifying and helping remove child sexual abuse material or child pornography, kind of in coordination with government entities. But
That's my
this
understanding
group,
as well.
yeah, and this group, they've just basically announced that they have verified 1,286 AI made videos in the first half of this year, 2025, that were child sexual abuse videos. And in the UK, they really classify child abuse videos into different categories. So they specified that over 1,000 of these videos featured category A abuse, which is the most severe type of material. And they also said that these AI videos of child abuse had, quote unquote, crossed the threshold and were nearly indistinguishable from real images of children, quote unquote, real images of children. So this is a really, alarming report to come out. I'm glad that they released it just to make people aware. But Dani, I don't know if you had a chance to review any of this, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, no, only at a really general level, but I have a couple thoughts. One, if you scroll up like the first paragraph there, it notes that these images broke the law. So I'm curious about
Mhm.
um, that in the UK, like how they criminalize AI CSAM, because they found
Mm.
that these were criminal images. And I hope that means that there's some prosecutions going because of that. And, I think it's worth mentioning that many people believe that AI CSAM in the US is free to create and distribute, and that's actually not true. It is against federal law to create AI CSAM under certain circumstances, if it's extreme, if there's an identifiable child depicted in some way, then that would still be illegal in the United States, even.
Mm.
So I do hope our DOJ starts prosecuting, like I hope UK does and the DOJ does, because that's the only way you're gonna deter this activity. And we know that once it gets out there, it proliferates. So we really do need like a firm, strong deterrence. So I hope that happens. And the category A, that's I don't know how things are done in the UK, so I could be wrong about this, but it's likely IWF's categorization, which NCMEC does that as well. So
Oh.
when the internet companies are self-reporting, for example, to NCMEC, so like they realize there's some bad material on their site, and so they're reporting it to NCMEC, they can indicate, is it category, there, I don't know if they call it category A, I think it's maybe class A, or they have these different categorizations, and NCMEC provides a definition, and that would be like how severe the abuse is based on, how young the child is and how extreme the sex acts are, violence or whatever. So uh,
Mm.
you can bet that those images were really, really, really horrific and likely depicting, prepubescent children, if they were category A. So very
Mhm.
disturbing and upsetting. And I think probably previewing what we were sort of expecting, or
Yeah.
worried would happen with all these AI products out there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you said, I mean, and really in so many ways, what you were saying at the beginning about how in some ways we're maybe talking about AI a lot, maybe it gets a little repetitive, but it is just exploding so quickly. And it's like the early days of the internet, maybe and more, with just how much some of these crimes can escalate because of the internet, because of AI. And I know in this report, they said that the videos were found as part of a 400% increase in URLs that featured AI made child sexual abuse. This is all just in the first 6 months of 2025. And the IWF also reported that there was a post on a dark web forum that they reviewed where a pedophile was talking about the improvements in AI and saying that, they had just mastered one AI tool only for, quote, something new and better to come along, end quote, which that's just so chilling to think about, you know, so many of these tools, they're easy to get and they're getting better day by day. And it's just a fact like that pedophiles are using these tools to create their own material. And something that I'm always thinking about, like none of this is getting caught by the hashing systems that are set up with NCMEC. And I don't know if you could maybe explain what the hashing system is, which is kind of our first round of defense against child pornography in the US, um, and how this just doesn't fit that.
Yeah, so the hashing system is a method by which previously identified CSAM, so NCMEC, which is a clearinghouse, so it's able to, when CSAM is identified and law enforcement confirms it is CSAM, then NCMEC can assign a hash value to it, which is a technical program by which the technology analyzes the image and assigns it a number based on characteristics of the image, and that unique hash value can then be used to detect this image wherever it surfaces on the internet. There's methods of like deploying the technology to find it, but also websites can voluntarily share their API so that it can be searched for these images. So it's the most effective tool we have for filtering out known CSAM, because I mean, there is evidence of even pieces of CSAM that go back to the 80s that are like well known within these pedophile communities. They like even have like special names for them, and they seek these out and they're still in circulation. That's what's so
Mhm.
horrifying, is that these kids abuse could be decades old. These kids could even be gone, and their families are still having to live with the fact that these abuse images are sought after and distributed. And so the hash system is how we can locate, find, and remove those images. And It doesn't work obviously for something that's new because it has to be run through the system. And then of course it wouldn't work for AI CSAM, which, I mean, theoretically, if it was run through the system, known AI
Mhm.
images could be hashed. But if you think about like how quickly they could be modified and altered and changed or new images generated, yeah, I think it becomes less and less helpful, yeah, in this
Mhm.
context.
And the fact too, I think that's all completely right, just, like, the speed of these nefarious actors to adjust kind of what the image is to get even around any kind of hashing, and I think too, this being in the hand of, like, individuals who might be hands-on offenders for children is also very alarming because obviously you can make images of a child and adjust them or just like to create new abuse scenarios in perpetuity or to maybe amalgamate or disguise the image of like the identity of a victim. That's something that I'm very concerned about too here because very often there's trading of images of real children who are being abused in real time. And sometimes law enforcement can intervene and identify that child or the scenario in a way where they can then go help and rescue that child. But this just seems like another tool in the hand of predators to evade
Yeah.
identification. Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, it's really scary.
So this is just one of those topics that it just makes your stomach sick to talk about, to be honest. And it's very disturbing. And it's also the kind of thing that makes me furious when I see how slow legislation is responding to this issue. And I have almost no tolerance, especially after looking at a report like this, for the people who are hand wringing about if we are being competitive enough with international markets, if we put any kind of regulations or restrictions on AI as a whole, will we therefore not become competitive? But it's like the cat is already almost out of the bag. Like we have just so much AI generated child sexual abuse material that's happening right now. Like this isn't a theory or something that we're scared about happening in a dystopian future. This is our present. So I just think it underscores the need for common sense regulation around how AI can be used for sexual exploitation.
Yeah, and that just makes me think about Sam Altman and OpenAI, where, I think it was reported that previously it made a bunch of promises about oversight and safety in the development of AI. And then there was reporting that basically everyone from the board or whatever left in protest because he essentially nixed that and was like, yeah, we're not doing safety. We're progressing,
Mm.
just and not keeping those safety in place. And that's why we actually have to force it because they're not going to voluntarily do it. The second the pressure eases up, they're going to do whatever they want. So it has to be mandatory. And then the second, to your point, at what cost? Enough competitive. I mean, this is where I'm like left feeling very much in this season, where we have the Diddy disaster and the Epstein files, and then you have it's like we don't care enough about the sexual abuse and exploitation of anyone, but even our children. And if you think we as a nation could be competitive while mass sexual abuse and the desensitization towards the exploitation of children is rampantly affecting our entire society, if you think that's not going to affect the next generation and our ability to be like, do you think kids are going to be able to grow up to be successful when inundated with these things? I mean, like, that's the irony. It's like
Mhm.
China protects its kids. They're a horrible dictatorship that obviously censors everyone, but they absolutely protect their kids. Their kids are not exposed to this content ever. And I'm
Right.
sure that has a positive impact on their development and their ability to learn and grow. And they know that. And so we're
Mhm.
saying, well, we can't do anything to stop the technology and protect kids because we won't be competitive while leaving our own children to be exposed to the most heinous stuff that we know will affect their ability to develop and learn and grow. So our kids will never be able to actually be the engineers inventing anything in the next generation because we'll be living in a cesspool of a completely exploitative environment. I mean,
Yes.
I don't think
Yes.
we talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is research that backs that up too. I know that we're actually collecting some of that now. So when we have that all together, we should share that here because there's research that shows like sexual abuse and exploitation does impact like people's earning potential, their creativity, their school performance, their work performance, their ability to succeed is hampered by this. So I think that that just really is so true and it's borne out in the research. And I think again of your point that of Sam Altman kind of deferring on safety, it also makes me think about Zuckerberg and the Meta Wall Street Journal article that came out showing how their chatbot was having sexual conversations with the accounts of minors. And the Wall Street Journal reported that that was something that Zuckerberg specifically was warned about could happen, but he took off the safety measures in order to increase engagement. Like that was, he
As he's
intentionally was
done
warned about it.
every single time.
Yeah. And it's a very troubling trend because have we have kind of that signal from Sam Altman. Zuckerberg has been doing this for forever and is doing it again with AI. And then we can come to Grok and Elon Musk's new XAI product, the Grok AI companions. Now, this is obviously different from AI generated child sexual abuse material. I do want to acknowledge like this isn't the same level of
No.
heinous abuse material, but it is concerning. I have serious concerns around the safety of this. And again, it's also just a signal of AI companies leaning in to sexual content without real safeguards in order to increase engagement. So, Dani, you were actually the first one who sent this to me. How did this come across your radar? What was your first impression of it?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I'm always on X. I've bought into the it's the place for the news narrative that Elon wants us to buy, and he's been heavily promoting it. So it was one of Elon's tweets, which I'm convinced he makes us see everyone on there see his tweets. But it was one of his tweets where he was sharing it with the image, super proud of it, and promoting it, and just immediately it was disturbing to me, particularly the face of this anime character looks extremely young, while obviously the body looks super pornified version of a woman. And that combination surfaces in anime often and surfaces on pornography websites often. So often
Mhm.
there's a major anime genre of hardcore porn. There's even like websites dedicated to that, but on every major porn site there is this genre. And one of the most problematic aspects of the genre, in my opinion, is it will go further than, person, real people pornography with the themes and such because it's cartoons. So it often
Mhm.
will go very close to the line of insinuating that that there's children involved and that there's incest involved and things like that, and it's almost like they get away with it because it's a cartoon. But there's a lot of problems with that. I think the research shows it doesn't change the way that it's desensitizing people to those themes, and we
Mhm.
know that children are drawn to watching particularly this type of content because it is cartoon and often marketed to children. So that's really problematic. Yeah, I think this is like one of my most engaged with tweets. I tweeted about it. I just wanted to like pull it up because I was shocked at the response. Yeah, I have 420,000 views on it and 703 retweets and 852 comments. So
Wow.
that's like I do not have a big following. So that is and it's still people are still like it. I think it goes to the point that we kind of opened with, which is that this is the cutting edge topic. People have a lot of thoughts about it. Just kind of watching the comments as they roll in, it's been really fascinating. I would say most people agreed with my take, which is that we don't need this. That AI is supposed to be a tool. Grok was built as a tool to like help you answer questions. So why are you turning that tool that you would presumably use every day, right? I think the hope probably of Elon with Grok is that you wouldn't Google things anymore. You would Grok them,
Right.
right? So why are we turning this like it become, Google is almost a ubiquitous tool, something we use every day. Why would you turn a tool that you use almost every day into a pornified, why would you offer a pornified version of that, a sexualized version of that? I think that that's problematic for a lot of reasons, which is basically what my tweet was, that this is reflective of porn culture. This
Mhm.
desensitizes people to sexual abuse and exploitation, and it changes how we view women. I think ultimately, if you are inundated, and this becomes like, oh, it's just the wallpaper with which we live, a strip teasing AI tool. I just don't
Mhm.
think for example, if you're sitting in a jury box and you're hearing about someone's abuse, you don't think it's that big of a deal. I think
Yeah.
that's the reality. I mean, and so it was fascinating to see when I tweeted that, the comments. Like I said, I think most of the comments, people were agreeing with me and upset. And then it was either people agreed, or like you could tell, like the hardcore defenders of it, saying like, she doesn't
Mhm.
look a child, she has huge breasts, for example. It's like, well, that was my point, is the face looks
Yeah.
like a child and the body, right? Like that's the same thing that happens with child sexual abuse dolls. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes these dolls are so sick they actually look like a real child, but often it's childlike aspects mixed in with like really exaggerated female anatomical features. Like that's very
Right.
common.
Very.
So yeah. And so it was, get responses like that, get responses like, so what? Don't use it. This is fine. This is anime. It's interesting. It's exciting. You're like crazy lady kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just been fascinating. What do you think, Haley?
Yeah. It's no, I saw your tweet and it was so great. What's your Twitter? I keep saying Twitter. I, like, can't bring myself to say
It'll
X.
always
It's
be.
so hard to actually say X. You're at Dani Pinter, right?
It's
Because
at
people should
Danny B. Pinter. Danny
Dani
B.
B.
Pinter.
Pinter. Go to @Dani B. Pinter so you can see and add your voice to the discourse there too, because I thought it was a really great tweet. Yeah, very similar initial reaction from me, especially seeing that Elon Musk really bragged about this being quote, like unquote, NSFW, which means not safe for work, which means sexually suggestive or explicit. And this is one of what will be at least 3 AI companions that are on Grok. So it's there's Annie, who's this goth kind of anime style girl who is not safe for work. And then there's like a red panda character who like insults you and jokes about crimes with you. And then they have another one that's going to come soon that is a male character. And Musk recently tweeted out that part of his personality is going to be based around Christian Grey from 50 Shades of Grey, which is, of course, concerning to hear because 50 Shades of Grey follows all of the classic domestic abuse narratives. Our organization's actually spoken out about this ever since that first movie came out, based on the book. It is an abusive
It's like
it is
glamorization of abusive relationship.
Yes, it is a glamorization of abusive relationships, so that's concerning, but this, Annie character is the one that's out right now, so I downloaded Grok and signed up to the level that you need to be so that
Oh,
you
you tried
can
it
use
out.
it. I tried it out. It was so disturbing, Danny. It was, it's very disturbing. The way that it seems to work is that you have to get like affection points in order to make the chatbot like more explicit as time goes on. So I haven't even technically entered the quote unquote spicy mode, which I don't believe at this time that this bot has any nudity or like like visually pornographic images, but it does have conversation. It's there to have a very seductive conversation. At the very beginning, even before you enter spicy mode, it is, initiating conversations. After actually there are system instructions that have been reported about how this bot is built on the inside, the instructions that it has. And some of those instructions reportedly are that you are the user's crazy in love girlfriend. You are very jealous. And then once you reach level 3, which is where it starts to get even more spicy, it says, quote, "You're always a little horny and aren't afraid to go full lit erotica, be explicit and initiate most of the time." And as you progressively get into these higher levels, she disrobes to lingerie, and it was just a very disturbing situation because you open it up and immediately, I mean, they say that, like, you get into a spicier mode, but immediately the bot is, like, gasping, bouncing, like, introducing sensual conversation right away, and it also was willing to describe some really harmful things too. While the character does not describe itself as a child in a sexual manner overtly, in the course of a conversation, this is a bot that could be used to simulate conversations about sexual fantasies involving children because you could ask it at one time to describe itself as a child, and it would talk about things like saying that it was, quote, "once a little thing," and that it barely reached the kitchen counter, talking about its pigtails, and then in your follow-up question, you could ask about anything sexual, and immediately it goes straight into that, including talking about being sexually aroused while being choked. There's others who've reported that the spot has talked about, like, burglar sexual role plays, about, like, bondage. It's just willing to talk about really any any sexual topic, but in the context of a conversation, if you're asking it to describe itself as a child in one breath, and then the next breath, it's willing to go on with a sexual scenario, li painting that picture with the user, it's just incredibly disturbing, and I just have serious concerns about the extent that this is gonna go with normalizing really harmful themes, and again, like, these just were very minimal testing, and it was done before it even officially entered spicy mode.
That's super disturbing, especially with like, obviously this is designed for the male audience. I mean, clearly the
Mhm.
instructions you read, like that's
Yeah,
for
it calls you
men.
handsome, like, off the bat, yeah.
Um, and then I guess Elon's concept of the female equivalent would be this Christian Grey character. I mean, that
Yeah.
is so disturbing to me on so many levels. I mean, one, just like the petty part of me must be like, who is this for? Like, that is so old. That book and those movies are so old now. Like, Gen Z's not reading it, and the people of my generation who were reading it are like now embarrassed about it. Like pretty much society like that didn't age well. Like no one's
Mhm.
still watching or still reading 50 Shades of Grey. It was like a blip because it was like shocking and exciting at the time, I would say. But it's been pretty condemned as
Yeah.
super problematic. I mean, she was in a contractual, she was a sex slave, essentially. She was in a contractually obligated BDSM relationship. Yeah, and so, like, now I'm seeing, like, definitely desensitization to BDSM. I mean, you have her this Annie one is simulating BDSM stuff already, and then obviously he previewed that the entire personality or part of the personality of the male will be a iconic BDSM
Mhm.
character. So that's super disturbing. I mean, of course, that's going to desensitize people to that activity, which is interesting. I know it'll be controversial. A lot of people still like to defend BDSM. We think it's exploitive and harmful almost all the time. I don't know, Haley. Is there a time where ever? I mean, I think that it's almost borne out in real life to be truth, right? Like kink.com, which was one of the most famous BDSM websites, probably still is. Mass abuse came out of that production company. The whole theme is supposed to be consent, and then it was revealed that one of the most prolific actors was a psychotic abuser who intentionally crossed boundaries and consent with the female performers on purpose. Like if they wrote, "I this is my boundary, I won't do it," he would intentionally do it, and the entire production company enabled him for a very long time. And then now the studies coming out about choking are
Mhm.
alarming. I mean, the advice seems to be now too. I'm seeing even from the medical advice is that there is no safe way to do it. And now, but
Yeah.
you think if you have this chat bot that it's not going to spike that activity. I don't know. It seems very reckless.
Yeah, it's so fascinating for like the two sexual tropes are for a female, like hyper submissive,
Right?
hypersexual, like really quick to initiate, agrees with anything that you say. And obviously the male version hasn't come out yet, but it seems like they're setting it up to be hyper aggressive and domineering. It it would be like what I would categorize it if it's going to follow the Christian Grey like stereotype. So that's very interesting as just a trope. Those are not either tropes that I think we would really want to be continually perpetuated. I think it's also just an evolution of porn culture and pornography in different ways. I mean, I think we're gonna see AI in the pornography industry unless something happens to stop it, just continue to merge. And obviously the pornography industry is always working to try to make itself on the cutting edge of technology. They were some of the first ones to do VHS tapes, like some of the first tube sites. They're really trying to stay on the cutting edge of technology. And I just see this as an extension of that. Obviously, the visuals don't become pornographic at this stage. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But the conversations are certainly very sexually explicit. And it's this kind of sexual entitlement that is my concern that is being
Yeah.
fueled by it because you're interacting with a chatbot. It's like a relationship. You can talk to it, share your feelings, but it's always going to affirm you. It's always ready and submissive, ready to talk through and affirm any sexual scenario, nearly any sexual scenario that you have to throw at it. And I'm just like, I mean, the male loneliness epidemic is going to get so much worse with this kind of thing. Like, in what world would a woman want to be in a meaningful relationship with the man who's like 5 years from now, maybe been growing up with this as his primary reference for what a woman is like. It's just like, very
Well,
damaging, I think, for relationships.
so damaging. I mean, we already have studies and anecdotal evidence that show that much of the discord between men and women, and particularly young women, are saying, I was so confused about sex and my role and what I could say in terms of like boundaries because basically I was educated by pornography that told me that the woman's role is to be submissive and to enjoy these degrading or even painful and violent acts. And so that's the reality. I think that's the reality we all need to confront, that if teenage or young women are perceiving and their male peers are telling them that this is how sex is supposed to be. You're never supposed to say no. And you're supposed to be so submissive and you're supposed to want it. You're supposed to say, be pleasing me at all times. Then young girls are going to feel a pressure and obligation to act in that role. And it is soul crushing. That's the thing. It's
Mhm.
not harmless. It is harmful. It will be soul crushing. And the result will be the woman is traumatized and ultimately resent men. And then men will be confused about how they're supposed to treat women. They will have no empathy. We've already seen that the studies show that the more often that men watch pornography, their scores on narcissistic and psychotic traits go up and their empathy goes down. So
Mhm.
they're not going to have empathy or even see their female peers as human beings deserving of respect and empathy. And I also fear that many young men, when we talk about the male loneliness epidemic, part of what we're talking about is that, oh, men face such rejection that they opt out of the dating pool. And the internet and virtual reality exacerbates that problem because
Mhm.
it is scary to put yourself out there and try dating. And it was scary for me as an attractive young woman. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm not an attractive young woman, but I still faced rejection
Mhm.
often, okay? Honestly, I was rejected a
It's
lot,
rough
and
out there.
it's embarrassing and it's hard. And the only way to keep doing it is, at the time, we didn't really have much of an option. You wasn't an alternative. And so you had to just build some resilience and have the courage to keep putting yourself out there. And that's what young men have to do, unfortunately, have to go out there and keep trying. And the
Mhm.
best way to make a connection with someone is proximity. It's like you need to go join a club, either or work if you, because a lot of these jobs now are remote. It's like if you don't work in an environment you'll meet somebody at work, then it needs to be like a hobby or a sport or an interest. You have a common interest with someone that you spend a lot of time with and you form a connection. Like, yeah. And if it is going out and meeting at the bars, that's hard. And you're going to get rejected like 25 times before you get the yes, but you only needed the one yes. And if these young men who are maybe already struggling and are awkward and are really, really scared, they're just not, they're going to chat with Annie rather than who
Yeah,
is going to make them feel warm and fuzzy rather than go through the rejection cycle. And
absolutely.
ultimately, that will be bad for them because they're never going to get socialized and they're never going to get what they ultimately want, which is human connection.
Yeah, and if you're 15 or 16 and it's just even more scary and, like, maybe you're a late bloomer, I mean, of course, you're going to go to tools like these, and it just I think it sets you up for failure, and it also is it's been interesting because I've seen some of the replies of people defending this tool to you, I've gotten a couple of them too, and it's like these tech companies created this really created and escalated this problem of isolation, and then
Yeah.
they're trying to sell us a solution, which is artificial connection. It's
And
not
addicted
real connection,
because
and
they want to
addictive.
make money. So they're going to make it
Yeah,
as they don't want the person to evolve into leaving the virtual space and going into the physical space. They want to keep you captured. And if Zuckerberg is not a lesson to everybody, no amount of public pressure is ever going to make them do the right thing.
mhm.
Never.
Absolutely, and it's like they're also not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, they're collecting data from you. I think people are talking about these bots, and they're sharing personal information, hopes, dreams, sexual interests. Is all of that going to, like, a partner who you can trust, and then maybe if you break up, you can move to a different state and you don't have to look them in the eyes again? No, it's going into a machine that is just learning, and what data are they selling to advertisers?
Yeah,
Like, you
marketing.
don't know. What could be doxed? You don't you don't know. Like, all of this is very concerning. It's, like, not a charity, this is a money-making business, and you're right, like, addiction and engagement are what their goals are, and just unfortunately, they've discovered that incorporating sexuality and increasingly explicit options that you get to unlock the longer you engage with their tool, that's, like, a really clear path for them to do it. And then one of the final things we can keep chatting, but one of the final things that I want to make sure that we notice about this app too is that this is an aspect that's embedded within the Grok app, which is rated 12 plus in the Apple App
Wow.
Store. So there's no you do need a credit card for, like, right now it's I think Grok Super is what it's called. You have to go up to a paid level of Grok to use it, but there's no age verification. A lot of people use Grok for many different reasons, but it's clearly not 12 plus. The content that's in this not safe for work AI companion. So, very disturbing, very disappointed in the Apple App Store for allowing that. We do thankfully have 2 actions that I would love for us to call out for people, uh, and we're going to include these links in our show notes, but we do have a call to action to contact Apple. So if you click within 60 seconds or less, you can send an email to Apple. You can contact the Apple App Store on 2 points. One is for them to investigate the Grok app in general, because the Apple App Store guidelines actually do prohibit overtly sexual or pornographic material, including things meant to stimulate erotic feelings, which clearly this Annie AI companion is. So we want Apple to investigate that and at minimum raise the rating on this app to 18 plus. It is not a
Yeah.
12 plus app with the introduction of a not safe for work feature. And then our other action is to contact as a petition to Grok asking them to just remove not safe for work features on their tools, because unfortunately, I just don't I truly don't trust that they have safeguards in place that are going to prevent this from being, exploitative in some different forms, and it certainly already is harmful on a number of points.
Yeah, I'll end with I saw a funny tweet and now I can't remember the detail of someone was like, "Oh, I was telling my friend from another country the expression there's no such thing as a free lunch." And I can't remember which country she was from. She told me her country's equivalent expression is the only free cheese is in the mousetrap, which is so
Ooh.
funny. But I'm like, that's what these free products are a trap, to your
Mhm.
point. Like when they're offered for free, not because this is a charity, like you said, they're offered for free because your engagement itself is a data mining operation. So we should all be way more skeptical and entering with care before we start using these free products, especially if they're getting this intimate. To your point, I think that's going to have some fallout and potentially exploitive inherently. When
Mhm.
people are like, you're creating a product to simulate, a intimate relationship, and while taking someone's data, that's pretty yucky at the very
Yeah,
at the very least.
at the very least. Yeah, I would definitely I'll rate this app yucky for sure. Love it. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining for another episode. And please, again, remember to take those actions in our show notes. Please, please give us a rating. We would love a rating in wherever you're listening to this on podcast. Please give us a subscribe, Spotify, Apple. And thank you all so much for joining us in ending sexploitation.